While partisan bickering continues, Oklahoma's budget crisis is deepening. Republicans in the House of Representatives this week blocked every attempt by Democrats to expand the gross production tax in favor of their own proposal. By a mainly party-line vote, the House approved an increase to 7% for the gross production tax paid by wells drilled before 2015. The House and Senate also passed bills that put a partial patch on the state budget, leaving unclear for now which state agencies will see more budget cuts.
After a measure to raise the state's gross production tax from 2 to 4% failed to get out of committee last week, lawmakers returned to the Capitol on Monday and began cobbling together measures to close the state's $215 million budget gap. House members approved a measure to tap the state's rainy day fund, giving about $23 million to the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to stop anticipated cuts from taking place.
These draconian cuts will go into effect in December. There will be people that will lose their jobs for no reason because the money is available and it is going to be used as part of whatever final agreement we reach. So we need to give it to them right now.
House Majority Floor Leader John Echols said the legislature would also move to lift the gross production tax rate on so-called legacy wells from 4 to 7%, generating additional revenue without running afoul of the constitutional 76-vote requirement for new tax measures.
That can be done as a 51-vote measure because that is a rebate structure inside the statutes. It specifically says it's a rebate.
But when the bill came up in the House on Wednesday, Democrats questioned House author Dennis Casey whether that was truly the case. Representative Corey Williams argued the same logic could be applied to all wells, not just the legacy wells.
For wells that are already in production, and we're removing an incentive, which is what we're doing right here, there's zero reason why we can't remove the incentive for every operating well today with 51 votes in this chamber. Isn't that correct?
You'd probably be a little above my pay grade of determining that. I'm just going by what we've been told from staff and different people, so it makes sense what you're saying now.
There was also some confusion about how many wells would be affected and how much revenue the bill would actually raise. Casey, who admitted he was not an oil and gas expert and didn't know why he was chosen to carry the bill, said he relied on the Oklahoma Tax Commission for the numbers.
Can you give us an indication of how many completed wells, how many completed horizontal wells that this bill will affect?
Just dealing with all I can give you is the approximate number of the three wells that it's dealing with, which is horizontal deep and ultra deep, and that's 6,600.
But Representative Jason Dunnington pointed out there's a difference between spudded wells, which have not been completed, and wells which are actually producing.
It needs to be completed in order to get this tax incentive. So would you be surprised to know that the number of wells that you're working with isn't the correct number of wells that we would actually be drawing income off of in this policy?
Representative Steve Copeland also raised the point of whether the bill's revenue-raising potential was being oversold.
What if the estimates are too high and the revenue coming in is too small to fill the so-called hole that you're talking about? What happens then?
We've seen that happen a lot of times because every year, I mean, they make projections of what they think is going to come in and it doesn't, and then at that point in time, the legislators have got to pull together and figure out how to work themselves out of that.
Questions were also raised about how much revenue the wells could be expected to generate, since many were already more than 2 years old.
I'm not a geologist, but I do know, even in my own area, where I've seen wells that are pumping now that were pumping when I was a kid. And so I think that as far as you look at that, I think it's obvious that the production is going to go down, but I also think that there are wells that do go for 30 or 40 years. I don't think you know that until you actually start pumping them.
During debate on the measure, Dunnington again stressed the uncertainty of the numbers, pointing to figures that showed a measure passed last session, raising the rate on legacy wells from 1 to 4%, has generated less money than projected.
There's not as much money in this bill as being told. And there isn't. We have empirical proof that that's not true because we passed an exact version of this last session We passed the version of taking it from 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, and this version would take it from 4 to 7. The Tax Commission is giving us the same numbers that they gave us at the end of session that they're giving us now, except we have 2 months of collected data that show that we missed projections significantly.
I have not seen very many accurate numbers the time I've been here. All right, things change here. All I would say is basically somebody brought up a kind of a neat analogy. I think I'll use that analogy or share that analogy with. He said, if a firecracker comes up to your house and you see there's not enough water, would you just say, oh, I'll just forget it and let it burn? I know this is not enough water, but it's a start.
The House finally approved the bill by a vote of 64 to 31, sending it on to the Senate for final approval.